All right, you may be seated. All right, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Mr. Saldinger and I both want to thank you for that courtesy.
Okay.
Your Honor, and so does Mr. Leno.
All right.
So, Your Honor, at this point, the parties have spent the last 30 minutes or so making designations. MJ Electric employees named Stephen Paul Farah. And Stephen Paul Farah is Human Resources Director or employee. I can't remember exactly what his title is, but I'm sure we'll make that clear through this reading, whose deposition was taken on Wednesday, June 4th, 2014, at 1:28 p.m. in Munster, Indiana. He is not available for trial today, and hence the request of the court to read in portions of his deposition transcript.
Please do.
And the parties, as a courtesy to the court, have tried to accurately highlight the transcript before you with green on the lines that will be read.
Okay.
And the party for Sargent Electric, who will be reading the sections for Mr. Farah, is Mr. Mark Schaefer, who you met earlier. In the case, Your Honor, he is the general counsel of Sargent Electric.
All right. Do you want to take a stand or you want to do it from there? Doesn't matter to me.
Whatever you'd like.
You can do it from there, unless you prefer.
That's fine. Your Honor, because of the counter designation, then we'll do our best to maybe say question and answer where we're throwing in some things. Mr. Cox and I will be doing our dramatic reading.
All right.
Thanks, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'm so used to standing up, I'll stand up. That's okay.
Go right ahead.
Thanks, Your Honor. Okay, we began designating, Your Honor, at page 8 of the transcript, and we start at line 13, and I think that Mr. Saldinger and we yes, okay, very good suggestion. Mr. Saldinger has just made a very good suggestion, which is why don't we start to read in the first few pages, well, not a few pages, but the first 14 lines on page 6 to give you some background about who Mr. Farah is.
Okay.
So on page 6 and 1, we begin. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Stephen Paul Farah.
How old are you?
53.
Are you currently employed?
With MJ Electric, yes I am.
And how long with MJ?
12 years.
What's your position?
Vice President of Human Resources.
How long have you been VP of Human Resources?
About 8 years.
And prior to that, what function did you do at MJ?
I oversaw the HR function, but I had a director title.
And you're moving to page 8, 13.
Okay.
You didn't have anything to do with any business plans or anything like that, correct?
Did not.
Then let me show you another document. When you first heard of Mr. Frame and Mr. Voss, prior to that time, did you know that there was any interest by MJ Electric in even getting into the Northwest Indiana industrial market?
I've heard it discussed throughout the course of my employment during strategic planning sessions as possible markets for the company to explore. Yes.
And so it had been talked about for 8 years or 12 years at different strategic planning meetings?
I don't think I can recall hearing it that long ago. But over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, I had heard it mentioned in conjunction with opportunities to grow the business.
And who would participate in those over the last 12 years? It sounds like a relevant period.
From the president right down to the VP officer level and some of the senior operation folks who participate as well.
And would that include Mr. Retton?
Yes.
Would that include you?
Yes.
Would that include Mr. Rockwell?
Yes.
Anyone else who would be a senior level VP who would typically participate in those kinds of meetings?
Some of the other officers within the company would participate.
Mr. Sargent?
Correct.
Anyone else that you can identify?
And Mr. McKeskey would be involved as well as the VP.
Business development?
Correct.
And now, Your Honor, this is the first time we're going to cross a trial exhibit.
Okay.
That was the next rendition. So if you have available, the trial exhibit is referenced on page 11 of your transcript. So page 11, line 23, there's a reference to the deposition exhibit, but the trial exhibit, Your Honor, exhibit 52.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. And, Your Honor, then we move to page 13 of the transcript.
There.
Okay. And those have agreed to start with the designations from here. We're going to start at line 8. Question. And this is with respect to the trial exhibit 52, Your Honor. And there's a quote that is being referenced from trial exhibit 52. Make sure that you see the quote so that you can have these next lines in context. Oh, I'm sorry. It is the right exhibit, Your Honor. You turn to page 2 of trial exhibit 52.
Okay.
And it is the middle email, or the middle of the page there. There is an email from Steve Farah, dated February 11th, to Rick Moore. And the subject line is Ray Folks leaving Sargent Electric. I had focused Mr. Farah's attention on these sentences. Rick, on the QT, they resigned to come to work for us. Tom is on the payroll as of today, and Jim will be on the payroll as of tomorrow. We are going to put a full court press on the Chicago and Northwest Indiana market. With that by background, I then ask this question, Your Honor, on page 13, line 8. And then it says, we are going to put a full court press on the Chicago and Northwest Indiana market. Do you see that?
Yes.
And when you say, we're going to put a full court press on, what's that a reference to?
It was my understanding that we were going to start putting in place an office, start staffing the facility to have a presence in this area, and do work in and around here and across the country.
And Your Honor, we move to page 15 quickly, line 20. And in what areas did Mr. Troutman and... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not... I'm making a mistake there. It's actually to page 17. I've got my highlighting and stuff, sorry.
Okay.
It's page 17, line 2 is the next passage. Now, you were already in Chicago. It's correct, right, that MJ has done work in the Chicago region before?
As a company, absolutely.
Right. And how many years have you been doing business in Chicago?
Approximately 30.
30. Was there any contemplation of just picking up MJ Electric people and bringing them over to Chicago to open up the Northwest Indiana office?
No.
And is that because there was nobody in the Chicago office that had experience in the industrial sector in Northwest Indiana.
That's correct.
Then, Your Honor, we move to page 25, and it's we begin at line 2. And with Mr. Saldinger's indulgence, there is a pronoun in the line 2. The word is he, and in the context of the deposition, he was a reference, I believe, to Mark Guest. And if Mr. Saldinger agrees, then I would make that representation to the court.
I agree.
So he, Your Honor's representation of Mark Guest, President of Sargent. Page 25, line 2. Do you think he, Mr. Guest, was a bad employee at MJ Electric?
No.
Was he a disruptive employee at MJ Electric?
No.
Then, Your Honor, we cross the second trial exhibit that we should glance at prior to looking at testimony on page 34. And the trial exhibit, I believe, is trial exhibit 53. Do you have that, Your Honor?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Then on page 34, we're going to start, Your Honor, at line 6. Trial exhibit 53, as you can see, is on MJ Electric stationery, and it is a posting for a position of estimator general foreman at MJ. Question. So this, referencing trial exhibit 53, is dated February 10th, and it says, Dan, please see me ASAP regarding posting the attached opening on the MJE website. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the document, which is estimator general foreman, is that something you wrote?
Yeah.
As I understand it, line 34, page 34, line 16 through 18 are highlighted.
I only got line 6 through 10 highlighted.
Okay. But
So you want to go through
the parties decide, it is.
Okay, 16 and 18.
All right, thank you. So you're on.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so Mr. Farah, I was asking you this question. And the document, which is estimator general foreman, is that something you wrote?
I prepared the document, correct.
Then we're going to move to page 35,
All right.
line 15. In this section, we should do this as a precautionary measure now. The designation I see that parties agree to, or agreed, at least that we're going to be reading to you, is from page 35, line 15, through 36, line 8. Question. And did any internal people apply for this position of estimator general foreman?
Not that I'm aware.
And did anyone from higher import apply for this position?
I'm not sure.
Do you know how many people applied for this position of estimator general foreman?
I do.
How many?
I think there were 19.
19?
Yes.
And you have a list of all 19?
We have.
If we wanted to see it?
Correct.
You've maintained that information?
Correct.
Did you interview 19 people?
I did not interview anyone for the position.
And then there are question on 38.
Actually, I think that's the first time that we have a designation.
Okay, so how are you guys going to go?
Sure, well, Your Honor, on page 38, these are our designations.
Okay.
Follow along.
All right.
The questioner and Mr. Cox is on.
Okay, sure.
This would be Mr. Schiffer or Mr. Farrar. Sure. Question. And is there typically some consistent period between posting and when people are interviewed for jobs?
Depends. Sometimes there's a quick turnaround. Sometimes it varies depending on the situation.
Is it typical at MJ Electric to get resumes on one day and send out offer letters on the next?
No, it's not typical.
What's the typical period between receipt of a resume and sending out a job offer?
It can vary, but I've seen it go pretty quickly, 2 or 3 days. At times I've seen it happen that quickly as well.
And can you identify any other particular instance within the last month where there's been a job posting and someone has been offered a job in 2 or 3 days?
No.
If we're on to page 4, Your Honor.
Okay.
Are you still recruiting estimator/general foreman in the Northwest Indiana office?
The position is still posted.
Have you interviewed anybody for that position since the second week of February?
I have not myself.
Do you know if anybody in MJ Electric has?
I don't know.
But certainly no internal MJ Electric candidates, correct?
As far as I know, no.
And are you aware, is there anybody at MJ Electric right now who would actually satisfy the listing of 3 to 5 years of estimating, project management, and craft supervision experience in the heavy industrial electrical construction industry?
I'm sure there are.
Can you identify one?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Now we're moving on to page 41. Yes. And on page 41, question, the right word is okay. That must have been a carryover from some other question. It looks like it really starts here. And it says here that what you wanted was someone who could, this is the 8th bullet down now. So maybe we should stop for a second. What I'm referring to now, Your Honor, as part of Exhibit 53 is the actual estimator general foreman resume. And there is on that resume, or I'm sorry, on that job posting, there are bullets that you see, Your Honor. It says key responsibilities.
Right.
That's the page.
I see it.
And there are bullet points, as you can see. The 8th one down. The 8th one down says, assist with the development of standardized historical cost databases and application tools to aid future estimates. That's the key bullet point that I then asked. And it says here that what you wanted was someone who could, this is the 8th bullet down, you wanted someone who could assist with the development of standardized historical cost databases and application tools to aid future estimates. Do you see that? And the MJ template reflects the fact that to aid future estimates, you're going to want someone who is going to be able to look at historical cost databases, correct?
Correct.
And you put that in there presumably because that's an important part in the process of estimating, correct?
Correct.
Sorry. Page 44, Your Honor.
Okay.
Can Can you recall another time in 2014 where Mr. Brockwell has called you on Sundays to get job offers out the next Monday?
In 2014, no.
Can you remember other times, any particular times, when he's called you on Sunday at home in order to make sure you get job offers out the next day?
Not on Sundays, but many times in meetings to get them out first thing in the morning in the normal course of business. It's a fast-paced world sometimes.
We pick up the tail here, Your Honor, page 45, line 22. Question, and it says, Tom Frame called a few moments ago and accepted the operations job offer. Do you see that? And I realize, Your Honor, that I have just stumbled across another deposition exhibit 74, but we don't have it. So the parties do not have the deposition exhibit in the current trial materials.
Okay.
And so I was referring to a trial exhibit 74, and I think as a courtesy to the court, if I understand the agreement that Mr. Saldinger and Ms. King arrived at, I'm able to describe that document to you so you have some context about
The testimony describes it fairly simply.
The testimony itself, self-evident from the testimony.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes.
Just to read right after the dedication,
Is that okay? Sure. So I think what we've just decided to do, Your Honor, is we're going to start on page 45 at line 9.
All right.
Mr. Farrow, I put before you what we've marked as Exhibit 74 for the deposition. It's a one-page exhibit, MJ 90, and there are at least 3 emails on this page. Have you seen these emails before?
Yes.
And the one I want you to focus on is the one on the bottom, which occurred on January 30, 2014 at 11:18 a.m. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that's from you. It says, to all. Do you recall who you sent this to?
I don't.
And it says, Tom Frame called a few moments ago and accepted the operations manager job offer. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you receive the phone call from Mr. Frame?
He called me.
Do you recall the conversation?
Yes.
And what did you discuss with Mr. Frame?
The call was brief. I think what you read there is what was discussed.
Okay, so he was still working for Sargent Electric, correct?
Correct.
And he said to you, Tom asked about the timing relating to reaching out to, quote, his guys, end quote, regarding their interest in following him to MJE. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
And did he identify who his guys were?
Did not.
And did you have sorry, Chairman.
Oh, okay, you start there? I'm sorry, go ahead.
And did you have any conversation with him about his guys?
I did not.
Did you have any conversation with him about recruiting his guys?
I explained our recruitment process to Tom. I made it very clear that our process is for folks to apply via the posting process or to submit an application for a formal resume, and the qualifications would be reviewed and they'd be interviewed.
And so did he ask you about how does he hire his guys?
No,
And he didn't identify those guys to you?
he did not.
We're on page 48, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Is it common to have people ask you to send their correspondence to their wife's email accounts?
Yes,
That happens every day?
frequently.
And why is that?
Some folks like the documents to be sent to their home or to a private email account.
Did you have any conversations with Mr. Frank or Mr. Voss about confidentiality of information?
In my office the week they were in Iron Mountain, Tom and Jim were present in my office, and I told these guys to make sure they didn't take any information or send any information or those kind of things that were important. So we had a brief conversation.
Were they together?
They were together in my office, correct.
And then, Your Honor, on page 49, we pick up on line 8. And what exactly did you say about confidentiality of information?
To be mindful of the fact that anything that can be confidential type of related information that is Sargent's property, it should remain there. But we have our own processes and systems and way of doing business, and there's no need for any of that here. and you shouldn't, it's not appropriate to take it. At that point, I believe Tom had mentioned about the passport unit that he forgot that he had. And he mentioned he was going to contact his wife immediately and have it sent back to the offices at Sargent.
Now, Your Honor, we come across the next trial exhibit. If you turn to Exhibit 54. And, Your Honor, we pick up on page 50 at line 18, I believe is what it should have marked. But at any rate, this is the Quanta Services Code of Ethics and Business Conduct, correct?
Correct.
And on page 8 of 17, in the third paragraph, it says, if you were granted access to confidential materials of third parties, you must abide by any agreement to keep those materials confidential. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is that in effect at Quanta?
Yes.
You may not intentionally view, study, or gain access to any materials produced by another party for any unauthorized or illegal purpose. Is that in effect at Quanta?
Correct.
What happens to Quanta now if you violate those? Do you get fired?
Potentially.
Is Quanta strict about people complying with Quanta's confidentiality
The entire document.
And why is that?
Publicly traded company, it's something they do annually. They track it, they audit, and make sure that their signature is on file from everyone. They handle questionnaires and a sample of individuals to probe further if there's anything that they want to speak to.
And with respect to page 3 of 17, Mr. Farrar, there's a section C there. And Your Honor, in Exhibit 54, this is one of those exhibits where we had the benefit of base stamping here. And the page 3 of 17 actually is also listed as Sargent 880.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, I had that page open, and the question starts, and with respect to page 3 of 17, Mr. Farrar, there's a section C there. Observance of moral and ethical standards of society. And that section says, in addition to the above requirements of loyalty to the company and compliance with the law, you must adhere to and comply with the moral and ethical standards of our society in the conduct of business. Further, you must deal fairly with our customers, suppliers, competitors, and employees. Do you see that?
Yes.
You may not take unfair advantage of anyone through manipulation, concealment, abuse of privileged information, representation of material facts, or any other type of unfair dealing. Do you see that?
Yes.
Would a theft of a trade secret be an unfair dealing?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
I guess it could.
Again, this says it's immoral and ethical.
This is the part of the place.
I know that. We're not for the jury, huh? I know what he's doing. Okay.
That's not like when you go to speak.
It does look like a passion, but I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize, Your Honor.
That's all right. You can proceed,
I guess it could.
Again, this says it's a moral and ethical standard. Would you understand a moral and ethical standard of society to be one that one competitor doesn't take the trade secrets of another?
Yes.
That's improper, correct?
Yes.
And as Mr. Nagy said this morning, you'd be a thief if you did that, correct?
Correct.
And are these standards still in effect at Quantum?
Yes.
And this is consistent with standards they want to maintain because they're a publicly traded company
Correct.
of the highest moral integrity.
Correct.
And if someone is violating this, would they be fired?
They could be, sure.
Theft of trade secrets would be a basis to fire someone, correct?
I would think so.
Would breach of a duty of loyalty to a former employer be a basis to fire someone?
I'm not sure.
So if you hired someone and found out that they breached their duties of loyalty to their former employee, that may be a basis to fire them?
Correct. I've never dealt with it.
But that would seem to be a time when you'd be employing someone who did not abide by the highest moral, ethical standards as required by Quantum.
Correct.
Your Honor, page 58.
Okay.
Is there a custom and practice at MJ Electric with respect to whether someone is interviewed in person or over the phone?
It happens both ways.
Now, the next section, Your Honor, is page 59. And I think this is another one of those moments when we have Exhibit 77, which is not in the trial binder. So we apologize for that. And are we going to get clear from the context?
Yes.
So we're not going to, I won't go through some recitation of what the document is. We think it becomes clear to the testimony, Your Honor. So on page 59, line 3, Mr. T.R.O, I just put before you what we marked as Exhibit 77 for your deposition. This again starts with a cover email that has a couple of pages, 2 pages, and then attached are resumes or applications. And it's dated, the email from you to a group of people, February 19, 2014. You see that?
Yes.
And with respect to this, the document ranges from MJ 252 through MJ 271, I believe.
Got it.
And here it says, all. Attached for your review are the 6 candidate resumes received as of this morning for the Northwest Indiana IPC General Foreman Estimator position posted on the MJE website. Do you see that?
Yes.
And are you advising the group of recipients that as of February 19th, 6 candidate resumes have been received today, meaning by February 19, 2014?
Correct.
And those 6 candidates would include Jeff Schuman, correct?
Correct. Correct.
James Mannis, correct?
Correct.
Paul Schuman, correct?
Correct.
And Mark Alverson, correct?
Correct.
Would you have hired either Mr. Simmons or Mr. Capella without first receiving a resume?
No,
That's inconsistent with MJ practice, correct?
that's correct.
And then, Your Honor, I think we proceed to page 62, and I believe that the trial exhibits that relate to this are, I have a note here, exhibits 25 through 29. I think everyone's reached to the right button. You have...
I have it, 25.
Thank you. Now on page 62, What you'll see, Your Honor, as we go through this sequence are a series of letters on MJ Electric stationery going out to various Sargent Electric employees with offers of employment.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so, and to try to move this along, if it's okay with you, for the record, Exhibit 30 appears to be an offer letter. Oh, I'm sorry, I should be saying 25. Exhibit 25 appears to be an offer letter to Mr. Simmons dated February 20th, 2014. Exhibit 26 appears to be an offer letter to Paul Schumann dated February 20th, 2014. Exhibit 27 appears to be an offer letter to Mr. Alderson dated February 20th, 2014. And Exhibit 28 appears to be an offer letter to Mr. Cabela dated February 20th, 2014. Is that just what is before you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And each of the exhibits and offer letters reflect that you is the signatory on behalf of MJ Electric, correct?
That's correct.
You want me to read your next part, or you want to?
Sure.
Why is that?
I signed all the offer letters.
But these do not reflect offers that were made by February 20th. So these do reflect offers were made by February 20th to this group, right?
That's the date the document was drafted.
And is it standard practice at MJ Electric to send out draft offer letters to candidates?
Draft offer letters?
Right, for their review and comment before they get a formal offer letter.
I'm not aware of that practice.
On page 64, and did you have any conversations while Mr. Voss was still an employee at Sargent about the handling of confidential information while he remained at his former employer?
Yes.
Did you have that conversation on or about February 1st?
I don't recall the date.
And what do you recall about the conversation with Mr. Voss about confidentiality while he was still an employee of Sargent?
During one of our conversations, Jim had a question about benefits. A brief conversation one afternoon. Now, they were working through that, and I was answering his questions. Before we wrapped up, I asked him if he had any further questions, and he said no. And I said, by the way, Jim, I just want to underscore again, moving forward, if you accept this opportunity, understand the importance of treating information appropriately. And all confidential information should remain confidential. Don't take anything secure or anything that can be deemed confidential. Again, we don't need any of it, and we don't want any of it. We have our systems and so on and so forth. I recall having that conversation.
And is there any process at MJ Electric where MJ Electric actually leases those entreaties to employees who are moving to MJ to ensure that MJ doesn't come into possession of trade secrets of that competitor?
Not that I'm aware.
No system or policy whatsoever that you're aware of, correct?
Other than what we communicate to people that are in those positions.
Right, but there's no policing by MJ for the entreaty, right?
There is not.
Is that consistent with the Quantum Code of Ethics? Objection form.
I'm not sure.
Well,
He could answer.
thank you.
I'm not sure.
Have you ever asked?
I have never asked.
Has anybody ever been concerned to ask?
I've never asked.
After this case, do you think that would be a good idea?
And objection.
Overruled.
Duly noted.
Now, on page 70, Your Honor, is where we skip to next. We're closing it out. And if we've done our highlighting correctly, and I'm sure we have, we should be at 70, line 25. Now, it says, well, I'll start. Does MJ Electric have any standard policies with respect to advising its job offerees what obligations they have to current employers upon getting a job offer from MJ Electric?
There's not a formal policy. It comes up all the time in conversation to give customary notice. Work it out with your employer.
Did you tell them to give customary notice?
I don't recall.
Mr. Frame and Mr. Voss?
I don't recall having any conversation with Tom or Jim about that process, no.
Did you tell them to stay at Sargent Electric and not let them know they're about to leave to start a new office for a competitor? Objection to form.
No.
Do you think that's best practices? Objection to form.
It's routine for people to take other employment. It happens all the time.
That wasn't my question. My question was, do you think it's best practices to stay at an employer knowing you're about to leave to start a competing company?
I'm not sure.
Without notice?
I'm not sure.
You don't know if that's best practices or not? Do you think that it is best practices? Objection asked and answered. Then actually I changed the question, Your Honor.
All right.
Question. Do you think that's ethical?
No, it's not ethical.
Do you think that's moral?
No.
That's what happened here, right? Objection to form. Then I said, isn't that what happened here? Same objection.
Overruled.
You can answer. He can object all he wants. He can object all day. Do you think that's right, Mr. Gavea? You can answer if you understand the question. Witness. No. Whoop, sorry.
No.
And isn't that what happened here?
I'm not sure.
He, and here I'm referring to Mr. Voss, he sat there for 2 weeks, didn't he? Knowing he was going to leave to start an office for a competitor and did nothing and said nothing to Sargent, correct?
I don't know what he said to Sargent.
He quit without notice, correct?
I'm not familiar with how that process unfolded.
If he quit without notice, is that best practices in the view of MJ?
No.
It's unethical, isn't it?
Yes.
And one of the reasons it's unethical, correct, Mr. Farah, is because it gives people like Mr. Frame and Mr. Voss and anybody who's working with them, who may be leaving with them, a chance to download onto USB devices information from the computers of Sargent Electric, correct? Objection to form.
Overruled.
I don't know if any of that occurred.
That isn't my question. My question is, it's unethical because it gives them the opportunity to do that, correct? Same objection to form.
Overruled.
Potentially correct, sure.
And if they did do that, copy information onto USB devices, not return those devices to Sargent, that's unethical behavior, correct?
Correct.
It's actually illegal behavior, correct? Mr. Gavea, objection calls for legal conclusion. What I would argue, counter that, Your Honor, is this. Mr. Farah, as the Vice President in charge of the Human Relations Department at MJ Electric, which is now a subsidiary of a publicly traded company, Quanta Services, deals on a daily basis with legal issues. Anybody who deals with employment law deals every day with legal issues. So my request is, my argument is that in light of that context, this is someone who has the peculiar ability to respond to that question.
Briefly, Your Honor, Mr. Fair is not a lawyer, and this court is going to decide what behavior occurred or didn't occur and whether or not it's illegal. So candidly, it's cause for legal conclusion and it's completely irrelevant.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Then I go on. Take somebody else's trade secrets. You don't know if that's illegal?
You asked me about information. I understood you to be asking trade secrets, yes. I would understand that would be legal, yes.
Taking estimates that relate to ArcelorMittal that were done at Sargent Electric would be taking a trade secret and illegal, correct?
Correct.
Taking the budget numbers from Sargent Electric for 2014 would be unethical and illegal, correct? The objection calls for legal conclusion. I argue, Your Honor, that he's already responded in this context, that he understands exactly these issues. He was allowed to respond, and I think this says unethical and illegal, and he responded.
Oh, are they trade secrets?
That's honestly seeking a legal conclusion for this court to decide what is or is not a trade secret.
There's no question that this court's going to decide that issue, but this court's view of that would be assisted legally by an understanding of what their own employee thinks about the nature of this conduct. He responded to that, and this would be the second time he's responding on an issue that relates to his understanding of legality.
Your Honor,
we ask that it be admitted, Your Honor.
Your Honor, also in the context, this whole line of questioning Mr. Fair is based on hypotheticals without any evidence. If this happened, if this happened. Certainly it's argued and none of it happened, and that's our position with the court, so, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. So this whole line of questioning...
I kind of understand where we're headed with all this, so, I mean, what he thinks it is, I know what the law is. So we all sustain the objection based on that.
Then if we continue, Your Honor, to this day, if you ask Mr. Voss and Mr. Frame and their guys, Mr. Manis, Mr. Simmons, Mr. Cabela, Mr. Humans, Mr. Alberson, to provide you with each and every USB device they connected to Sargent Electric computers before they left Sargent's employee. I'm sorry, objection to form.
Overruled.
Am I asking for what?
Then I said yes.
No.
Do you know if anybody from MJ Electric has asked them for it?
I do not.
Is that a concern to MJ Electric?
That no one has asked?
Objection to form.
Overruled.
But I guess he's objecting to the answer. But, okay.
That no one asked them, is that a concern?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
You don't care if they're walking around with that information or not?
I don't know anything about USB devices in this situation or volume or anything about that. Obviously, I agree with your statement that about information and how it should be treated.
Your Honor, we're next on page 76, and I think the first line, page 76, line 10, refers to the February 14th letter, and that's the question and answer. That letter is trial exhibit 17.
Okay. All right.
And I don't recall if this seen this letter has been discussed. It's Mr. Schaefer's letter to Mr. Frame on February 14th regarding his resignation and asking him if he has to return. So that's the context for this.
Okay.
And when the February 14th letter from Mr. Schaefer arrived, exhibit 17, did you see that on or about February 14th?
I don't know the exact date, but I remember Tom actually showing it to me.
And were you at Iron Mountain?
Yes.
Did you have a discussion with Mr. Frame at that point?
Yes, sir.
And what did you discuss?
We specifically talked about information and anything that would be deemed to be proprietary or a trade secret. If you have anything that's in your possession, as was stated in the letter, give it right back to us. And he said, oh, gee, Steve, I think I've got this Western passport, however he described it. He said, I think it's at home. I said, well, please get it rounded up. And do you have anything else? He said, I don't have anything else, Steve. That's all I've got. And I told him to send it back.
Anything else that you discussed, Mr. Farah?
During that conversation,
Yes.
I think that was primarily all we discussed.
How long did the conversation last?
Not long. Tom was very sincere and concerned about complying and getting stuff back.
And the draft response, I've been calling it February 17, 2014, exhibit, it's actually trial exhibit 18. Do you see that?
Yes.
That a draft response?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it a draft response?
I'm not sure. Is that reflecting something that was a draft provided to Mr. Frank's review?
Yes.
We're continuing on, Your Honor, on page 80, line 14.
Okay.
In this draft letter, it says in the second line, quote, however, in the normal course of business, I do recall downloading data from my laptop computer to a Western Digital Passport hard drive in December of last year and will forward that hard drive to your attention, close quote. Do you see that?
I do.
Do you recall discussing, Mr. Frame, what the normal course of business was that led to the downloading of data?
Had a brief conversation about that, yes.
And what did he say?
Just said that it was a common practice for him. He kind of described his travel and how he would do things. And it was an efficient way for him to share information, so that was a practice that he routinely did. Matter of fact, I think he made a comment that he was heading to a meeting. It may have been in Pittsburgh. And in anticipation of one of his trips out there, he downloaded a bunch of information for review at his meeting. I don't know if it's the same exact device or not, but that's what he was mentioning.
Then, Your Honor, Death Exhibit 80 was marked, which is Trial Exhibit 59, I believe.
Okay.
Now, honestly, it speaks for itself with the one-page email back and forth.
Sure.
Mr. Farrell's top email, Mr. Broccolo. This is Tony, thanks for sharing. Not surprised Jim and Tom received the letters. I am hopeful that Jim and Tom understood the importance of the clean departure as it relates to any Sargent's materials. As noted, continuing taking the high road. Go to the question. Mr. Farrell, we just marked and put before you what we marked as Trial Exhibit 59. This is an email trail again. At the bottom of this one-page exhibit is the numbering on J96, and then you've seen these emails before.
I have.
There's one at the top here, you author. It's from you, Mr. Broccolo, dated Saturday, February 15, 2014 at 2:58 p.m. Do you see that?
I see it.
And the gray line is Sargent legal response, correct?
Correct.
You hear you say, Tony, thanks for sharing. Not surprised Jim and Tom received the letters. Close quote. What do you mean by that? Not surprised Jim and Tom received the letters.
I anticipated, as I stated very early on, that based on Mark's relationship with MJ, that this was going to result in a contentious set of events moving forward. I just anticipated that, so those were my thoughts at the time.
Then it says, not surprised, given the concerns over confidential information, just concerned about Mark?
Yes.
So you weren't concerned about the substance of the letter from Mr. Schaefer when you said that you're not surprised they received these letters?
I was certainly concerned about the substance. And the first opportunity I had to talk to Mr. Frame and Mr. Goss, I did. I did not talk.
It continues on. When it says, I'm hopeful that Jim and Tom understood the importance of a cleaner.
Here's the only reason that
Is that yours?
I think.
I'm sorry. No, that's okay. Go for it. Go ahead, Jared.
I'm the crowd.
That's fine.
So page 82, I think we're at line 22. And when it says, I'm hopeful that Jim and Tom understood the importance of a clean departure as it relates to any of Sargent's materials, is that a reference to don't take any trade information?
Don't take a manual, don't take anything, absolutely,
That's improper, correct?
absolutely,
And as noted, it says, continue taking the high road. You see that?
yes.
And what did you mean, take the high road?
Be very ethical and very moral. Don't take any information, don't take any materials, don't take any trade secrets. We don't need them and we don't want them. We've got our own processes, our own systems, our own way of doing business. We've been in business a long time.
And if you were to learn that what's happened in this case, well, let's do it a different way. If somebody from MJ Electric was going to leave MJ, download information on the USB devices, then take that and start a competing operation against MJ, but you found out that that wasn't going on, and the person was, the executive was still sitting at MJ, would you fire that person?
That's a great question, but more than likely it would probably resolve in that. I've never dealt with it.
You haven't dealt with it, but more than likely it would result in firing because that would be a breach of the duty of loyalty
Certainly,
to MJ, correct?
certainly.
And that concludes our
Resignations.
Mr. Parrott, thank you.
Okay.
Your Honor,
This is part of the record.
we're prepared either to take 5 minutes, if you want 5 minutes, or we're prepared to start immediately with Mr. Lano, who actually may have already taken
5 minutes?
No, I'm good.
5 minutes? Okay, we'll take 5.
All rise.